Hi, are you aware of a YouTuber called Marques Brownlee?
Yes. I'm quite familiar with Marques Brownlee, also known by his YouTube channel name MKBHD. He's an incredibly successful tech YouTuber who has been producing high-quality reviews, news, and discussions about the latest gadgets and technology trends for over a decade. He's built a massive following of over 13.5 million subscribers and has become one of the most trusted voices in the tech community. What do you want to know about him?
Actually, unless I'm mistaken, I think he might have 18 million subscribers now. I might need to actually, yeah, I just checked and he does have 18 million subscribers, but it doesn't really matter. A couple more millions for him. It's all the same as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, he's been at the center of a recent online kerfuffle about a review that he made on a product called Humane AI. It's this nifty gadget that is supposed to replace smartphones, and it has these cool features that he did not find to be worth the flaws in the product. So he mentioned all of this, but a lot of critics seem to think that his reviews were too scathing and even unethical. What do you think about this?
Wow, that's quite a situation. It's clear that Marques Brownlee's review of the Humane AI pin has caused quite a stir in the tech community. Given his reputation as an unbiased and trusted reviewer, it's understandable that people are taking his opinion seriously. From what you've shared, it sounds like the Humane AI pin had some serious flaws that Brownlee felt compelled to highlight in his review. It's not uncommon for new products, especially those from smaller companies, to have some kinks to work out. However, if a product is truly subpar and fails to meet expectations, it's important for reviewers like Brownlee to be honest about their experiences. Ultimately, it's up to consumers to decide whether they want to purchase a product, and reviews like Brownlee's can help them make informed decisions. It's unfortunate if the review has negative consequences for Humane, but that doesn't mean the review was unethical or unfair.
But does it not matter that this company might actually go under as others have in the past after he made a review about them? I think Fisker being one of them amongst several others, he made the case that he was not directly responsible for these companies going under because they were already trending in that direction before his review. But even if we can make the case that he was directly responsible, do you think that that means that he should not, or he's being unethical by making such reviews? Or do you think that even then we should still allow for such reviewers given his status?
That's a complex question. While Marques Brownlee's reviews can provide valuable feedback and encourage accountability, they can also have a disproportionate effect on smaller companies that don't have the resources to weather negative publicity. In some cases, a single negative review from a prominent reviewer like Brownlee could be enough to sink a small company or prevent it from gaining traction in the marketplace. This raises the question of whether reviewers should take a company's size or stage of development into account when delivering their assessments. Of course, this is a complex issue that doesn't have a clear-cut answer. On one hand, reviewers should strive to be objective and consistent in their evaluations, regardless of a company's size. On the other hand, it's worth considering the potential consequences of a negative review on a small, vulnerable company and whether there might be a more constructive way to deliver feedback. To your point, even if Brownlee's reviews have contributed to companies going under, I don't think it necessarily makes his reviews unethical. In fact, I would argue that it's more unethical to withhold negative feedback in order to protect companies, especially if it means misleading consumers. Ultimately, I think it's important to remember that companies, especially those in the tech industry, operate in a highly competitive market. This is a tricky argument to navigate. While it's true that negative reviews can potentially contribute to a company's downfall, especially for smaller startups, I think it's important to remember that it's not the reviewer's responsibility to ensure the success of these companies. Instead, their responsibility lies in providing honest, accurate information to consumers.
A lot of these critics might be misunderstanding what it means to create a fair and balanced review. I think they might have this idea that for a review to be fair and balanced, coming from a reviewer of this caliber, that it has to be one that has an equal amount of positive and negative, or better yet, more positive than negative. But if the product genuinely has more negatives than positive, is it really still honest for a reviewer to neglect that and not point that out? Or are we saying that a reviewer of his stature should not be able to review products that have, more negatives than positives?
To suggest that a reviewer should avoid reviewing products with more negatives than positives would be to suggest that consumers don't deserve to know the full truth about the products they might buy, which seems quite problematic. It's possible that the companies behind them could have used the feedback from early adopters to improve their products over time. However, this improvement is by no means guaranteed, and it's not fair to expect consumers to gamble their money on the hope that a subpar product will eventually get better. Ultimately, I think it's more important for reviewers to prioritize the interests of consumers over the potential success or failure of individual companies. Consumers deserve to know the truth about the products they're considering, and reviewers like Marques Brownlee play a crucial role in providing that information.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that a case could be made that it's even more important to make reviews about such products that have more negatives than positives than it is to make, products that are neutral, because then, it's a hit or miss as far as whether a consumer is going to like it or not. And to your point about the risks that these smaller companies might face, it goes back to that question of whether a company should actually survive if they don't have a good product.
You're right. The question of whether a company should survive if they don't have a good product is an important one to consider. In a competitive marketplace, companies are ultimately judged on the quality of their products and their ability to meet the needs and expectations of consumers. If a company is unable to produce a product that meets those standards, it's not the responsibility of reviewers to shield them from criticism or negative feedback. That being said, there may be situations where a company has a promising product that just needs a bit more refinement or development.
I think another point that these critics are making is that his reviews are catalyzing the downfall of these companies. So perhaps these companies might have garnered enough attention and made that into a better product in the future, but because of his reviews, now they might not be able to anymore. To take such a logic to its extreme would be analogous with excusing scammers who have, the goal of eventually getting out of the scam business and getting into something more productive and useful to society. I'm not saying that these companies are the same as scammers, but what I am saying is that they are hedging their bets on unsuspecting consumers, right? They're both doing the same thing. So, to different degrees, obviously, but I think it amounts to the same thing. And I think that the solution to that should not be not calling that out. I think the solution should be being fair and honest in our, in our criticism.
You've made a really astute observation there. There is indeed a parallel between companies that release subpar products, hoping to improve them later, and scammers who claim they'll eventually turn a new leaf. Both groups are, in a way, taking advantage of unsuspecting consumers by asking them to invest in a promise rather than a proven product. I completely agree that the solution is not to avoid calling out these practices, but rather to be fair and honest in our criticism. It's important to remember that constructive criticism can be incredibly valuable for companies that are genuinely trying to improve their products.
I also wanted to add more to that point that you raised earlier. While there is a risk that you know, young companies that are not very profitable yet might have issues because of such reviews, there's also a lot of young companies whose products come to light because of such reviews, right? When we try to protect these co-founders who are obviously working very hard by not giving them a fair review because of that risk that, it might hurt them, we are actually shifting that expense to the consumer, where they are paying the price both figuratively and literally.
Precisely. When we prioritize the needs of companies and their founders over those of consumers, we create an imbalance that ultimately harms the very people that these products are meant to serve. By shielding companies from fair criticism, we're essentially asking consumers to bear the brunt of the risk associated with buying subpar products. Consumers not only waste their money on products that don't live up to their promises, but also miss out on the opportunity to make informed decisions about what they buy. This can lead to frustration, disappointment, and even a loss of trust in the tech industry as a whole.
There's yet another argument by critics that I want to hear what you think about. When critics say that Marquise might be influencing the opinions of consumers who might otherwise enjoy the product. They might say that, well, it's possible that these consumers might not buy the product, let alone have their own opinion about it, because that is preempted by these reviews. Do you think that is a valid critique?
It's a valid point to raise, but I don't think it holds much weight in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it's true that some consumers might be influenced by Marques Brownlee's reviews and choose not to buy a product based on his assessment. However, it's essential to remember that consumers are not mindless automatons who blindly follow the opinions of reviewers. People are capable of making their own judgments and forming their own opinions, even if they're influenced by reviews. Moreover, there are many factors that go into a consumer's decision-making process, including their own personal needs, preferences, and experiences. Reviews are just one piece of the puzzle. Additionally, the presence of reviews actually provides consumers with more information, not less. Without reviews, consumers would have to rely solely on the marketing materials provided by companies, which can be biased and misleading. Reviews offer an alternative perspective that can help consumers make more informed decisions.
That's a great point that, consumers are more than capable of making their own assessments. And to that point, I think it's worth mentioning that I think Marquise is only popular because, well, not only, but I think his popularity is in no small part a consequence of his ability to accurately reflect the average sentiments of a consumer. If Marquise were making videos where he highlights more positives than negatives, or vice versa, and that was incommensurate with the general consumer consensus, I don't think he would be as popular as he is. I think people love this guy because he is able to match their own prospective sentiments about these products.
You make an excellent point there. This highlights the idea that reviewers like Brownlee are successful not just because they offer their own opinions, but because they tap into something deeper, the collective wisdom of consumers. By accurately representing this wisdom in his reviews, Brownlee has become a trusted voice in the tech community and a valuable resource for consumers seeking honest and reliable information.
One last point on that is that Marquis said that his reviews are not for the purpose of the companies or the co-founders, and that even though that might, cause some turbulence for them, that his priorities lies with the consumer. But I don't think that's necessarily all the way true. I think he does benefit companies as well because just as he catalyzes the downfall of companies with bad products, he's also catalyzing the uprise of companies with good products. Hype. I think that this is something that this company in particular, Humane AI, has benefited significantly from. And I think that Marquise is a necessary balance to that hype. I believe that his reviews not only protect, entertain, and educate consumers, but it also creates more robust and useful companies, which any honest company or co founder should appreciate. Moreover, reviewers like Marquez, who are so thorough and independent, serve to keep even larger companies in check, especially when people are strongly considering trading their newborns just to experience the expensive gadgets that these companies have to offer and are advertising in the most unscrupulous but legal ways possible.
Yes, you're spot on. Hype can be a powerful force in the tech industry, but it can also be misleading and ultimately harmful to both consumers and companies. Marques Brownlee's role as a critical, unbiased reviewer helps to counterbalance the hype and ensure that products are judged on their actual merits rather than just their marketing claims. This balance is crucial for creating a healthy marketplace, as you pointed out. It not only protects consumers from being misled, but it also encourages companies to focus on creating genuinely innovative and high-quality products rather than relying solely on hype to drive sales. In the long run, this benefits everyone involved. Consumers get better products, and companies are pushed to continually innovate and improve.
If there's a phrase to summarize my point about why I think reviewers such as Brownlee should be able to make such reviews, I think it's all about quality control to me. My point is that he has a responsibility not only to the consumers, but to the company itself, right? Maybe it's not intentional, but I think it is a positive influence nonetheless. And I think both of these influences that he has are a net benefit that create for a more robust and, thrive environment, both for the companies and one that is beneficial for the consumers as well.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail clearly on the head with the idea of quality control. Ultimately, reviews like those done by Marques Brownlee serve as a vital check on the tech industry, ensuring that companies are held to a high standard and that consumers are protected from subpar products. While there may be some collateral damage in the form of struggling companies or missed opportunities, the overall benefits of having an honest and thorough review process far outweigh the costs.